Before you zip up your parka or book that whale watching tour, there are a few rookie mistakes that can cost you money, comfort, or even your dream vacation. I've cruised to Alaska multiple times, and in this video, I'm going to give you the 11 mistakes that first-time cruisers still make and how to avoid them so you can get your cruise just right. When it comes to Alaska, one of the biggest mistakes people make, whether they've cruised before or not, is assuming that all itineraries are basically the same. Well, I'm here to tell you they're not. And if you're not paying attention, you could miss out on the most iconic parts of an Alaskan cruise. The two most popular itineraries are 7-day itineraries, either going round trip out of either Seattle or Vancouver, or a one-way. So let's talk about the round trips first. The round trips go out of, this one's going out of Seattle. So let's go out of Seattle, it goes to Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway. Now, depending upon the cruise line you're with, they usually add a glacier day. So the glacier day could be going to Glacier Bay National Park, that we're going to talk about in a second, or Dawes Glacier. Now, one-way itineraries, again, they also go out of either Vancouver or Seattle, stopping in Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway. Sometimes they stop in Sitka, sometimes they stop in Haines. This is what we're talking about, paying attention to your itinerary. Then sometimes they go to Glacier Bay and then also to Hubbard Glacier on their way to Whittier or Seward, Alaska. The three major glaciers or glacier areas include Glacier Bay National Park, Dawes Glacier, and the Hubbard Glacier. Let's talk about each one. Glacier Bay National Park is huge. There are multiple glaciers that you go to as you enter the park on the cruise ship. When you enter, park rangers come on board and they do talks and they point out wildlife, and you spend 8 hours just going down this beautiful, huge fjord. It's pretty much the gold standard for glacier viewing in Alaska. And I recommend, if you can go on a ship that has Glacier Bay, you do it on your first time. There's only a few cruise ships that do go to Glacier Bay, so you'll want to check your itinerary carefully. Some of them include Holland America, Princess, Cunard, and Norwegian Cruise Line. Also Viking, and here and there, there's also other cruise ships that do go to Glacier Bay. You just need to check your itinerary carefully. The second glacier that's popular to go to is Dawes Glacier. Now it goes through Endicott Arm, which is actually a more narrow fjord that takes you to the end to Dawes Glacier. We just did this last May and it was fantastic. You're much closer to the land so you can really see the waterfalls. We didn't spot any wildlife, but I'm sure it was there hiding. And then when you get to Dawes Glacier, the cruise ship does a 360-degree turn. For us, they did it twice. If you're on a Glacier Bay, they also do that when you get to Marjorie Glacier. So that's a really nice opportunity to see the glacier. The third glacier you usually only see if you're doing a one-way, and that's going to the Hubbard Glacier. The Hubbard Glacier is massive, and there was calving happening all the time that we were there watching it on our one-way cruise. So those are your three opportunities to see glaciers when you go to Alaska. So here's your tip. 1, look for a cruise that includes Glacier Bay. And 2, make sure you look for a cruise that goes to a glacier, because some don't. So you want to make sure you get in some glacier viewing. Another first-timer mistake is not considering the ports that you'll be stopping at. The big three are Juneau, Skagway, and Ketchikan. Juneau is Alaska's capital city, and the big excursions there include whale watching. So if you're going to do whale watching, Juneau's the place to do it. Also, if you want to go on a helicopter and land on the glacier, Juneau's your place. And finally, if you want to go on a helicopter, land on a glacier, and go on a dog sled ride, you're also going to do that in Juneau. Skagway is the port where you're going to get a peek at the gold rush history in Alaska. There, the #1 excursion is to take the White Pass and Yukon Railway up to the White Pass. There's also a very interesting historic town to walk through. Ketchikan is known for the native culture, totem poles, and salmon. But I'm going to tell you in a minute here what our favorite excursion is. I think our favorite Alaska excursion here in a minute when I talk a little bit more about excursion. But this is a town that you could take it easy, meaning you could go to the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, grab a salmon burger or fish and chips from Alaska Fish House, and just walk the town. Or better yet, I'm going to talk about this in a second too, grab the free shuttle that takes you to different stops in the town. Your mistake is, 1, not booking a cruise that includes a glacier experience, a glacier viewing experience, and 2, booking a cruise that doesn't include all 3, Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway. How do you avoid these mistakes? You read the itinerary carefully, which leads us to mistake number 2. One of the easiest ways to mess up your day in Alaska is to not pay attention to report times. And yes, this is true even if you book your excursion through the cruise line. Paying attention to your itineraries while you're in ports is really important because many of the excursions that you want to go on are long. They could take 4, 6, 8, or more hours, and you want to make sure you're in port long enough to go on that excursion that you want to go on. Let's take a look at a couple examples of itineraries. One's going to be a round trip, and the other one's going to be a one-way. And what we're specifically looking at is how long you're in the ports. So these happen to be a couple cruises that we went on. We went on this one this year in May, and that was on the Celebrity Edge. And then we're going to talk about a one-way that we took on a Princess cruise last year, just to give you an idea of what your cruise could look like if you pay attention to your itinerary. So here, this one we went out of Seattle, and then our first stop was Ketchikan, and you can see 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Plenty of time to do what you want to do in Ketchikan. It's a small town. Then the next day, the Endicott Arm and Dawes Glacier, you do that viewing early in the morning, so 5:30 to 10 a.m. So you're going to get up, get out on the deck, and check out the fjord and the Dawes Glacier. And then that same day, you go to Juneau, Alaska, and you can see you're there later from 1:30 to 10 p.m. And we're going to talk in a minute about the hours of light and a mistake people make with how much time it's light in Alaska, but it does allow you to be out on your excursions till later. And then the next day, you're in Skagway from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, plenty of time to do the excursions that they offer. And we'll talk a little bit more about the excursions in a second. And then you go through the Inside Passage, and then you have many opportunities, many cruises go to Victoria. So this one happens to be from 5:30 to midnight. Now, this maritime law requires that they stop in Victoria, but this is a great one because you get there early enough that you can actually get into the town and see things. Here's another example of an itinerary. This one is a one-way going out of Vancouver. So this one happened to be a Princess ship. So going out of Vancouver, stopping in Ketchikan, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you can see that's an early morning, early day. And then in Juneau, you have a nice long day, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. In Skagway, 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. And then glacier viewing, you can see, look at that, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. So you're there in Glacier Bay for a nice long time. And then the next day, when you're doing this College Fjord and scenic cruising, that's where you got an opportunity to see the Hubbard Glacier before you ended up in Whittier, Alaska. You booked a cruise, you know what your itinerary is, you know your port times, but you want to make sure that you check your daily planner. And also, as you're getting off the ship, they're going to have the all aboard time. So here's an example. The all aboard time is 3:30. So you want to make sure that you take note of that. And you want to make sure that your phone or whatever timepiece you're using is on ship time, because sometimes ship time and port time don't match. And then the other thing that you'll want to pay attention to is you'll want to get that port agent information. So either take a photo of your planner, your daily planner with that information, or sometimes the ships have it as you're getting off. The reason why you want to do that, let's just say, I don't know, you're on an excursion that's going long and it wasn't booked through the cruise line. Call that port agent, let them know, here's where we're at, this is what's going on. Sometimes they will hold the ship for you so that you can get back on time. Or let's just say something happened. You had an accident. You're at the hospital. I don't know. Call the port agent. They might hold the ship. So just make sure you have that information. That's a big, big mistake not to have the information with you. When you're out at ports, mistake number 3 is underestimating Alaska's weather. If it's not raining in Alaska, that's good weather because it rains a lot. Weather in Alaska changes constantly, meaning in the morning, it could be nice and sunny out, and by lunchtime, it's pouring down rain. So here's some tips. You want to pack with layers. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't mean this. Don't bring the parka. You aren't going to need it. You're going to be too hot and it takes up too much room in your bag. Instead, here's what you want to do. You want to have like a t-shirt layer, and you want to layer like this jacket or even like a flannel. That's what you're going to have on top. Next, you're going to have a puffer jacket or a warmer layer. So this is warmer, but it's not heavy. It's not going to take up your whole bag. After that, you need a rainproof layer. So the rainproof layer is going to be a water resistant or a rain jacket. This one is great to keep out the rain. But even with that, a couple years ago when we went to Alaska, it was raining sideways and we ended up needing to add a layer of a poncho. So that just keeps it that much more dry. This year I added a game changer, and that was rain pants. Oh my gosh. These work so well because they kept out the rain and they kept you warm and they kept out the wind. So when we were in Skagway, it was very windy and these just kept you nice and toasty. So in the past, I recommended that people bring leggings to wear under your jeans. I don't give that advice anymore. Wear your jeans and bring some rain pants to wear over your jeans. What else do you need? Rain wicking warm socks. These are alpaca socks. They work great. And then a hat. So this works both ways. It's a beanie, but it has a visor. It's not really a beanie. It's a hat with a visor that's warm. And the reason why this is nice is that when you put your rain jacket on, you can put up the hood and it keeps the rain off your face. And then finally, you want a pair of gloves to keep you warm. It's nice to have gloves like these that you can still use your phone with them, touch screen. And then finally, even though you're in Alaska, you'll want to bring sunglasses because the reflecting water, if you go whale watching, or if you do get to go on a glacier, it'll keep that reflection out of your eyes. For more on what to pack in Alaska, I'm going to link this video where I give you the ultimate guide and tell you everything to bring on your cruise. Mistake number 4 is not planning for daylight and time changes. In the summer, the sun can rise as early as 5 a.m. and set after 10 p.m. So here's something you want to pack on how to deal with that potential mistake. You want to pack an eye mask if you have a cabin that has natural light. So anything except for an interior cabin, you might want to pack that. Another thing to pack is some binder clips that you could clip your curtains shut to make sure that there is no gap of light like peering in on waking you up. Something you may not realize is that Alaska has its own time zone. So Pacific time zone, and then you have Alaska time zone. So it's 1 hour earlier than Pacific time zone. So no matter where you're flying in from, if you're having a time zone change, you're gonna have to add an hour to that. And that leads me to my next tip to deal with that is to fly in at least 1 day, if not 2 days early. Mistake number 5 is thinking that you need a balcony cabin. Balcony cabins are great, so let's talk about the pros of a balcony cabin. You have private access to fresh air and breathtaking views anytime. So on that glacier day, if you're there at 5:30 in the morning, just roll over and go out on your balcony and watch the scenery go by. It's great for the early mornings and late evenings. It's a perfect spot for wildlife spotting without leaving your room. It's ideal for enjoying maybe an early breakfast, room service breakfast with a view. And it's a nice escape if you want a quiet time away from the crowds. But here's some things to consider. It is more expensive, especially on popular Alaska sailings. And you have to book very far in advance because they sell out. I just looked at a cruise today for next summer and the balconies are already gone, not available. Next, you might not use it as much as you think, especially if the weather is rainy or foggy. And finally, glacier viewing days are best when experienced out on the open decks anyway, where you're going to get a full panoramic view. So even if you spend some of your time on your balcony, which you should on a glacier viewing day, you do want to get out there on the open decks as well. If you can't afford a balcony cabin, but you'd still like to get some natural light, an ocean view cabin might be a good alternative. The pros are, it's a solid middle ground option. It has a big picture window that gives you great light and a view of the water. You're actually closer to the water too, so if there is wildlife, it might be easier to spot it than if you're on a balcony. They're more budget friendly than a balcony, but it still gives you the feel for the scenery. And it's ideal for travelers who want some natural light and visual connection to Alaska's landscape. But there's no private outdoor space, and if your main goal is to sleep and spend time out and about, this might be all you need. There are some pros to having an inside cabin. One of them is it's the most budget-friendly choice. It's perfect for light sleepers since there's no sunlight creeping in at 4:45 a.m. It's great if you plan to spend most of your time exploring the ship or off in ports, and it can be a great way to afford more excursions or a longer cruise. But you might want to consider there's no natural light or outside views, and it can feel small if you spend a lot of time in your room. But on Alaska cruises, you are busy. You are busy on Alaska cruises, and you're out there looking at the scenery out of your room anyway. Mistake number 6 is skipping the Naturalist talks. These Naturalist talks aren't just boring lectures. They're very fun and interesting, and they really do just help you appreciate what you're seeing. And they help you, for example, to know what to look for in spotting whales or bears on shore. So they're very helpful. Mistake number 7 is not preparing for excursion sticker shock and booking those excursions early. The most popular excursion in Juneau is going whale watching, and whale watching is going to run you $200 and up. They often combine it with a visit to the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center, which usually ends up to be a pretty good value to do both of those things together, and they're both iconic things to do in Juneau. Another biggie, Alaska biggie in Juneau, is going on helicopter rides, either to the glacier with or without a dog sledding adventure, and that will run you $400 or more. Your top Skagway excursion is going on the White Pass Yukon Railroad, and that is going to run you $150 and up. Another excursion that's popular there is going to the Mushers Camp, and that runs you $200 and up. I promised you earlier to share my favorite excursion in Alaska, and that's the Bering Sea Fisherman Tour. The Bering Sea Fisherman Tour is going to run you $219 USD and up if you book direct. So this is one of those excursions, there's no reason to book it through the cruise line unless you want to pay more money. There's one boat. It's the only boat. And so if other people are going on it from your ship, you're on the same boat. Another fun thing to do in Ketchikan is to go to the Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show, and that will only run you $43 US per person. So you're going to want to set aside a nice chunk of change to go on those once-in-a-lifetime excursions that you've always been dreaming of. And something else to consider is looking into third-party vendors like shoreexcursionsgroup.com or Viator. Those are also opportunities that maybe they have excursions that the cruise line doesn't offer, or they do, but they offer it at a cheaper price. And no matter what, if you're going on a helicopter or a plane or anything that's not that many people can go on, you want to book early. I mean, really early. It could be a year early because they sell out. And the good thing is, just pay attention to their cancellation policy. Maybe you book it and then you can cancel it a month ahead if you decide not to do it, but at least you're on the books. Mistake number 8 is wasting time in ports that you could explore on your own. Not every port requires a big, expensive excursion. They're very walkable and they're great to DIY as long as you have a plan. Some Juneau highlights include the Red Dog Saloon. Don't miss the Red Dog Saloon. It's super fun. Tracy's Crab Shack, Deckhand Days, which has fish tacos that are supposed to be delicious. I'm definitely going there next time we go to Juneau. They have museums and the Capitol building that are all walkable, and the Gold Belt Tram. I'm going to link this map, and I'm also going to link this video in the description, and I'm going to pin it in the comments, and it gives you a plan if you don't have a plan or you don't have excursion in any of the 3 ports in Alaska. Here's some highlights for Skagway: going to the Skagway Brewing Company, going to the Skagway Fish Company, going to get a Klondike Doughboy, which is delicious fry bread with cinnamon sugar on it. Also, walking Broadway and exploring the historic Gold Rush town. I think this is the most inviting town to walk and to get the experience of the Gold Rush times. And then the Days of 98 show is a lot of fun. And then you can take the Smart Shuttle. The Smart Shuttle in town is $5, but something I learned as I was preparing for this video is that you can get an on-demand routes. So these on-demand routes are available from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. They'll take you to Jewel Gardens for just $3 one way. You can go to the Gold Rush Cemetery in Reed Falls, and that's a $10 round trip. And you can even go to the Skagway River Bridge and on demand go to the River Bridge and even all the way to Dyea. I'm going to put a link in the description below to the Smart Shuttle so that you just have that information and the phone number of what you call to schedule that on-demand travel. The Ketchikan highlights include jellyfish donuts. You can get a salmon donut. I know they sound weird, but they taste good. The Alaska Fish House, which is delicious for fish and chips. The Eagle's Nest, which has a great view of the port, and they have pizza. I definitely recommend. And then the Zing Creek Street, going to the Totem Heritage Center, going to that Great Alaskan Lumberjack Show. And then here's something to know. In Ketchikan, they have a free shuttle. It goes downtown to Creek Street, and it goes to key cultural stops. So that's a great way to, like, very inexpensively go to all the different spots in Ketchikan without having to walk. Mistake number 9 is expecting wildlife on demand. Alaska isn't a zoo. The wildlife does not perform on cue. So here's some things to bring to help you to have a better opportunity to see the wildlife. Number 1, bring a pair of good binoculars. Now, if you're someone who already has a fancy camera with a zoom lens, you'll want to bring it. I personally wouldn't advocate for you to go out and buy an expensive camera to take with you. Your cell phone's going to take okay pictures, but if you're somebody who really, really wants those good pictures and you're used to doing that, bring that good camera if you have room in your bag. The next thing to know is if you want to spot wildlife, one wildlife that you're no doubt going to see is bald eagles. They're everywhere. If you go on a whale watching tour in Juneau in late June, July, August, you're going to see whales. They guarantee it. If you want to see bears, you may see them in August, September when the salmon are running. You may not. But your best bet to see bears is to go on a tour that's a bear spotting tour that they have. They have those in Ketchikan. So if you want to spot wildlife, go on a tour that's telling you, we're going to go look for wildlife for you. Mistake number 10 when going to Alaska is thinking that your phone won't work. Good news, in Alaska, your phone will work. Now, it does have slower speeds than you're probably used to. So you want to make sure that you download anything that you want, maps, daily planners, things like that. Do that before you even get on the ship. I have one big mistake to share, but before I do that, please like and subscribe. Mistake number 11, forgetting the little things. You don't want to forget comfortable, broken in, water resistant walking shoes. These are fine, they're leather. You do not need heavy duty, hiking shoes unless you're doing heavy duty hiking. Another thing you want to bring is a thermos. This is great for those glacier viewing days when you want to have your coffee or your hot chocolate to stay warm with you all day long. You want to bring a refillable water bottle. You want to bring sunscreen. So even though you're going to Alaska, you'll want to have sunscreen. It can get very sunny there, and the last thing you want to do is get burned on an Alaska cruise. That'd be terrible. You want to bring your motion sickness medication. Now, you'll want to have that on the big ship, but you know the inside passage is pretty calm. When you go on those excursions, though, the little boats are what's going to get you. So you want to make sure that you bring your Bonine or Dramamine, whatever motion sickness medicine you have. Next, you want to bring cash. That's for tips for the drivers, for your guides. It's always a good idea to have some cash for them. And then you'll want to bring a big baggie. The big waterproof baggie, if it starts to rain when you're out and about, you can put all the things in it that you don't want to get wet. And you might even bring some small baggies where you can bring some cookies. Alaska will take your breath away, and with a little bit of planning, you'll have a comfortable, smooth, and unforgettable trip. To learn more about the ports, the excursions, and what to pack, check out my Alaska playlist next. Happy sailing! I've cruised to Alaska. They blah, 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 help to clip those curtains.